Good morning. So, what are we talking about today? The title of my video is Retiring at 62, No Pension, No 401k. Now, I am sure there are lots of people searching for that information because I've been searching for that information for a long time. And what I found is there are very few people that actually talk about that. Most of them go on and on about having a pension, having a 401k, or then if you don't, they're like, well, you need to get one. And so those type of videos really don't appeal to me because I'm not in that situation. So this is specifically about retiring at 62 with no pension and no 401k. If you are reaching 62 or you're before full retirement age and you know that you're going to retire with less money than you normally would, but you're only going to have Social Security, most of the time it's not because you just want to have less money. Most of the time people do it because of dire situations. The number one dire situation is health. And that is the reason that I did it at 62. Other people do it because they have to take care of someone in their family that's maybe got dementia or serious health issue themselves, or they've come into they got laid off and they can't find a job, or they just found that they've just burnt out and they just can't do it anymore. And so mine was health and being burned out. I think I probably could have struggled through another couple of years if I'd have stayed at the same company, because they did make a lot of accommodations for me for my injury that I had there, but it was getting to be a very stressful situation for me. And since I quit that job, I was unable to get another job. Main reason is because of my injury. I work in healthcare, I worked in healthcare, and the number one thing for a professional in healthcare is your credentials. And for my career, I had to have the national credentials, the state credentials, and I had to have CPR certification. And with my problem with my arm, as I could not get CPR recertification, so that cut me out of most jobs. And I even tried to get some remote jobs, and they still wanted the CPR certification. And I asked them why, one in particular, and they said it's just part of the protocol. So in other words, they're not really thinking through the protocol for the job. They're just, they just spit it out and that's it, right? Because, even in recent years, whenever I was looking at jobs, when I quit the one long-term job, they had a requirement for a bachelor's degree for my career, and it's not required for what I do. And it doesn't help anything. It doesn't give you more pay either. So even if you have the bachelor's degree, you don't get more pay for doing what I was doing. You just have to have the education. It's like an AAS degree or an associate's degree, and the credentials from the national is called the ART or the ARMIT or something like that. Those two, and then you have to have, if you live in a state that requires it, you have to have the state credentials, which is really all you do for that is pay them money and they give it to you. But you do have to have continuing education in order to recertify every 2 years to keep your licenses and your registries and all that stuff. So having said all that, I retired because I couldn't do the CPR, and I have memory issues, and I have the vision issue, and I can't do the CEUs. I can see how to read a book. I don't retain a lot of it because of the memory issues. But in order to do CEUs, you've got to be able to read something that answer a bunch of questions. And even if you're reading and answering the questions together, you're skipping between two different things. And my vision doesn't do well when I'm trying to look from one thing to another. And that was a big thing at work as well, because we had at least 2 computer screens that we were looking at all the time. We were skipping back and forth. And it got to be very stressful, very hard on my eyes. And so I made the decision to go ahead and quit. And then when I tried to find other things that would be more accommodating for my situation, I just couldn't find anything. So what I did was I went through a whole bunch of scenarios about my situation, because I did not have a 401k, I did not have a pension, but I was going to get Social Security early, which means that my money would be a lot less than if I waited till full retirement age. And my house is old, needed a lot of repairs, plus I had one debt that was significant, and I couldn't just, save up the money and pay it off with a small, chunk of money. It was significant. So what I did was I sold the house, paid off the debt, and the rest of it I have put into various entities to make a little bit of interest off of and supplement my Social Security. I do rent, and for me that works well, because the other alternatives were not, at the time, an option. I couldn't get into HUD housing because I made money off selling my house. Same for the income restricted housing. Both of those scenarios, you pay less rent, but they are a little different in different ways. The HUD housing, your assets can only be $2,000 or less, and you don't qualify for several years if you have sold a house. If it's income restricted, your income has to be above a certain threshold and below a certain threshold. So it had to be in this little narrow threshold of the low end and the high end. And if you sold a house, you have, I think it's a 2-year waiting period to get into that housing. You still had to have, you could have assets, pretty high amount of assets in that scenario. I think for a single person, it was like $100,000 or more, a little more, which is different than the HUD housing. But if you sold a house, it didn't matter how much it was, how much your profit was on your house. You have to wait the 2 years. And so for me, the only one that I would qualify for was none. So I had to either live with relatives or rent somewhere or buy another house. And I don't want to buy another house. I mean, I'd love to live in my own house, but the problem with buying another house is then I would be faced with the same issues I had in the other house I had. Repairs, maintenance, taxes, insurance, and unexpected costs, like if a hurricane hit, that kind of thing. So after going through all the scenarios, that is what I ended up doing. I get Social Security, I supplement it with a little bit of my savings, I keep a strict budget, I rent this house. It's a brand new house, it's nice. It don't have all the things that I had at my other place that I had to deal with. That place, it needed new windows. The electric bill was extremely high there because of that. It was in South Florida, so it was, you're running the air conditioner year round almost. And so the electric bill was typically anywhere from $180 a month to $250 a month, which is a big chunk of money. Plus I had a pool. I had to pay someone to come take care of it because I was just not able to get out there every single week and do all the things. And I had a massive yard where the grass grew. You could watch it grow. It grew so fast. And to get out there and cut it, I was not in any physical shape in order to do it. I had to pay someone to do that. So the expenses there were very high. The expenses were more than renting this house. And so that's why I chose to sell the house and pay off the debt and, eat more frugal. Now, the amount of money that I supplement my Social Security with is a little bit more than what I planned, but it's a whole lot less than what I calculated that I can, because I went through a whole bunch of different scenarios I did the math. In other words, I did the research and I did the math. I did use ChatGPT. I also went on Grok and did it again to compare the two to see if they were saying the same thing, because I know people say that, you know, these systems can, these AI things can be wrong. So I went through a whole bunch of different scenarios with just the money part of selling the house, how long my money would last, or for a certain period of time. I estimated 15 years because of my family history and all that. Most of the people in my family don't live past 80. You know, I don't know of any, maybe one, but most of them don't live till 80. And when they get to that point, they're usually in very poor health, or were in very poor. Most of them died way before that. I'm just talking like, you know, the outliers, I guess. But anyway, I estimated about 15 years for myself. And I put into ChatGPT, how long will my money last? Now, there are a lot of variables with that, and I understand that. So I played around with those numbers as well, like the inflation rate, the cost of living increases from Social Security, deducting Medicare at 65, the amount of interest I might get from my investments, you know, those kind of things. I put all those variables in there. And I came up with a number that kind of surprised me. I really thought it wasn't going to be that much. So that became my goal, was to stay below that number. And I've stayed pretty good bit below that number since I retired, because I have a strict budget. And that's the other thing that's important, especially if you're on a very limited income, is to make a budget and try to stick to it. And it doesn't mean you have to, you know, deprive yourself of anything. But like I've told other people that have an income, and just like, well, I think I have enough, I think it'll last. And it's like, well, if you follow a budget, you can say, okay, in my budget, I want to factor this in. I want to be able to do this thing or spend money on this thing. I want that in my budget. And it can be anything. A friend of mine, she has 2 dogs. She spends money on food and their health care, and that is part of her budget. I don't have that in my budget. And I don't have pets. I don't need a pet budget. But what I do have is, like, I like to travel. So I put that in my budget. Like, I've got a cruise plan next year for my sister's birthday. And so my budget includes planning for that. Now, a lot of people don't like cruising, so don't put a cruise budget in there, cruise expense in your budget. But what I'm trying to say is, if there's something you really, really want to do or spend money on, put that in your budget, right? That's what you want to do. Like my friend that has the pets, she has a nice house and a big yard, and her whole existence was over all of that. She didn't want to do a bunch of traveling. She liked fixing up her yard, you know, doing things in the house, spending money on nice decorations. You know, she has 2 big flower beds in the back, and you know, she's done all these, like a potting shed and all this stuff. She had all these things, and that's what she has spent her money on. And for her, that's perfect. That's not perfect for me. If you came to me and said, okay, this is your budget, and you're going to have this much money, you're going to have like $300 a month to spend on your hobbies, and we want you to spend it only on your yard, that wouldn't work for me. You know, it's like, you know, you design your budget. Nobody else is going to design your budget for you. Sorry, I'm harping on this, but I have had so many people that think a budget means you have to deprive yourself. Now, if you're only living on Social Security, you know, your budget is your Social Security, right? So it's not like you can spend more than that just because you want to. You don't have really a choice. You have to stick within that amount of money. And so if your budget is $2,000 and all your bills come up to $1,500 and you have $500 left over, that's what you've got. You can't just say, oh, I can't be deprived. I have to spend $1,000 on whatever it is. It doesn't work that way. A lot of people, I think, don't even understand that concept because they use credit cards. And for years, I had that spending mentality. If I wanted something, I just used a credit card and I bought it. And then over time, I realized, all this credit card debt's building up and all my money's going out to payments. And now I'm stuck back to where I started with, not being able to do anything or go anywhere because I got all these bills. So anyway, the point is that you can live on Social Security alone, but you have to budget it. And you have to think outside the box, But there isn't just one way to do it. All these people say, well, if you got a paid off house, live on your Social Security, you'll be okay. Maybe not. But if you're living in a house that you've paid off and you can't make the repairs on it and you can barely afford to pay the taxes and the insurance has doubled in the last couple of years and now your electricity bill is super high and you need new windows and the roof needs to be replaced, the air conditioner's 10 years old, the things are starting to fall apart. Instead of just letting your house fall down around you, think outside the box. My scenario, me and my brother are in the same scenario, I can tell you. We both live on Social Security. His house is paid off, and before I sold mine was paid off. I sold my house and now I rent and I live in a really nice apartment, a nice house. He did not sell his house. He does not spend money on his house. His house is falling down around him. I mean, literally falling down. It's got a leak in the bathroom. He's done no updates on it. It's a mess. It's a real mess. And when he passes, his daughter is going to inherit this house, and she's going to have to pretty much probably just, tear the whole house down and sell the land because the house is worthless at this point. I've been in it and I'm like, oh my God, this is awful. And if I had continued living in my house without doing any repairs, any maintenance, my house would probably look like that too. And I'm almost 99% sure he doesn't have insurance either. Because insurance is expensive in Florida. And if you're living only on Social Security, you probably aren't able to afford insurance in Florida because of the high cost of it nowadays. His house is an off-grade house, so I'm sure the insurance will be way more on that one anyway. Anyway, saying all that mess to get to the point, which is it can be done. You have options. You have to really look into them. Ask your friends, your family, what have you done? What's going on? And, when people come at you with that, well, why didn't you save money? Why don't you have a 401k? Just shut them down and say, look, I'm not feeding any of this negativity. I'm looking for positive ways to help myself. I'm not looking for criticism. I'm not looking for financial advice that I should have taken 20 years ago, the what ifs, the you shouldas, you couldas. I just need something right now. And there are resources out there. If you want, send me a text, a message or in a comment, and I can look up your local resources if you don't have the tech savvy to do it. The only reason I know how to do it is because I've been doing it a lot in my own situation. And so, Anyway, that's all I have for today, and I know this has been a long video, but I've had a lot to say. I've tried this video 4 times, and I hope this is the one that's going to get published. And I'll talk to you again another time.